For the robust committee, House Bill 15. Mr. Hogg, I would say whenever you're ready. Let's get started.
All right. For the record, Dan Hogg, State Budget Director, here to present House Bill 15, which is the regular supplemental bill. So we can get right into that. Page 1 is an increase for the foundation formula. This is due to House Bill 1552, which provides additional state aid to charter schools and for virtual education. The fiscal note on this is the full cost is about $117 million, but for FY23, we are only asking for about a little less than $75 million because we have enough lapse in the formula to cover the rest, and so that's what we're doing. We are asking for the full amount in 24. Page 5 is the School Nutrition Services Federal Fund, $217 million. About in July, DESE was notified of about $37 million in federal funding for a second round of supply chain assistance. There is also about $117 million for an inflation adjustment for the Keep Kids Fed Act. And then there's about $63 million in carryover for meals that were served in May, June of 2022, but that bills were actually carried over into fiscal year 23. So that is the $217 million for those federal funds. Page 7 is Prop C. This is the School District Trust Fund. As you remember, Mr. Chairman, this is a 1% sales tax for education. Our sales taxes are doing well right now, and so we are actually going to collect a little bit more money than we thought, and this is to make sure that we can transfer all of that this fiscal year, $28 million. Page 9 is Pathways for Instructionally Embedded Assessment. This is about 750 federal funds. This is grant from the U.S. Department of Education, addresses the challenges of providing technically sound assessment aligned to rigorous academic standards. This will help us provide timely data to our teachers for early intervention to hopefully address potential achievement gaps. Page 12, $3 million federal funds for career education distribution increase. This is just a $3 million more federal funds. In FY22, we had some payments that were held over until FY23, so we needed some additional appropriation authority to make those payments. Page 14 is the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This is $15 million federal funds. This was signed into law June 25th, 2022, so obviously after our budget process last year, $15 million. You can see there on page 14 the different things this will be used for. Page 16. This is Project Extended Impact. This is $3.1 million federal funds. This extends the reach and scope of the Missouri Leadership Development System. This is basically training for principals. Page 18, this is ARPA Maternal Infant and Early Childhood Home Visiting Grant, a little bit $1 million. This has to be distributed by September 30th, 2024, so we want to make sure that we give them time, both this fiscal year and next fiscal year, to expend those monies. Page 20, this is ARPA Child Care Stabilization Funds. This is $119 million federal stimulus funds. The FY23 appropriation was $325 million. The actual grant came in at $414 million, so it's the difference here of $119, and these have to be spent by September 30th, 2023. So we do need to get this moving this fiscal year. Now we move into higher ed. This is the Fast Track Workforce Incentive Grant Spending Authority. This is $800,000 additional spending authority. Fast Track has been expanded to include apprenticeships, and we also removed the loan-related requirement, which is increased participation. Okay. I don't remember if that was statutory. We all did it. I think we can all, yeah. Is it, we're a team. We all did it. So this is $15 million in additional spending authority for the Guarantee Agency Operating Fund. The student loan program within higher ed is being transferred to the federal government, and so this is spending authority to close that out and then transfer any remaining funds to the feds. You'll see a transfer into that fund here in a minute, but this is basically just what we need to do to close that program out. Then we have on page 26, $10 million. So this is the transfers to the Guarantee Agency Operating Fund. This is the money that will be paid out of that previous appropriation authority we asked for. So this is putting the cash into the fund, and the previous one was actual spending authority to spend it. Now we move into the Department of Revenue. So page 28 is motor vehicle inventory cost increase. If you turn to page 29, it shows you the cost increases for the tabs, the decals, the disabled placards, and those kind of things, how much they're going up per unit in our estimated volume increase. So you can see that on page 29. Page 30 is a postage rate increase. It's a 3-cent increase for letters, postcards is 3 cents, and certified mail is 25 cents increase. Page 33 is also DOR. We need more authority for the Port Authority AIM zone funding. We ran out of authority in 2022, and so we need more authority for FY 23. And this will go to various ports. Page 35 is the motor fuel distribution increase. This is $18 million. This is due to more fuel, motor fuel tax being distributed to our cities, towns, villages within the state due to the increase in the motor fuel tax. Page 37 is our park sales tax increase. Again, this is a sales tax, and our sales tax are doing well, so we are able to transfer more money into the park sales tax. Page 39 is the soil and water sales tax increase, same issue there. Page 41 is the Amendment 3 transfer. This is something we see every year in the supplemental. If you remember, way back in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, there was a constitutional amendment that said highways would only pay the actual cost of collections are 3%, whichever is less. So we basically settle up after the fact, and this is what GR owes to highways for the collection of motor fuel, driver's license fees, all those kind of things. Page 43 is the motor fuel highway transfer increase. We just saw the transfer to our locals. This is actually the transfer into the state highways fund from the increase of the motor fuel tax. Page 45, you'll see we now have a few lottery ones. These are all based on increases in sales. The way it works is on our tickets, we pay based on sales, and our sales in lottery have been really well. We're doing really well in lottery. So right here is a vendor payment increase of about $7 million for the sales-related vendor costs. On page 48, you will see the increase for prize payouts because the lottery is doing better than expected. And then on page 50, you'll see the second part of the transfer to vendor payments. Because of the way the funds are, it takes 2 appropriations to get that done. I won't say that the House changed that a couple of years ago to make it more complicated. I would never say that. And then on page 53 is the actual transfer to education from the increased lottery sales. All lottery proceeds must be spent on education for Constitution. Page 55, This is now in the Office of Administration. This is just a fund switch for our new mover system, the new statewide accounting system. We had 3 people budgeted out of general revenue. They actually should have been budgeted out of the road fund. You know, we're distributing those costs over all the funds that are going to benefit from that new system. So that's just a fund switch there. It's no additional spending, just a different funding source. Page 58 is $400,000 for worker compensation benefits. MoDOT actually has their fringe benefits within MoDOT. The rest of them fringe benefits for the state are in OA. They're seeing an increase. Their actuarial study shows that they are likely to have an increase in their workers' compensation benefits. So that's an increase there. Page 60. So this is movers implementation staff. So we are have awarded that contract, and we're actually moving forward on developing that system. And so we knew as we came on there would be a little bit more cost coming online. This is for more of the contracted employee costs and that kind of thing to help us get that going. We're working. We may have the budget part of that system ready for next session. We're waiting to see. I will tell you as far as that. We will not be implementing that unless we feel like it's in a really good spot. If we need to, you know, take a little more time to get it right, we will. But so far, it's going pretty well. Page 62 is increased costs for fuels, utilities, janitorial services, those kind of things. With the inflation we've seen throughout the economy, this is just increased fuel and utilities for our state buildings. All right, the next 3 sections deal with the same issue. By constitution, we have to transfer to the budget reserve fund. It has to be 7.5% of the previous year's collections. Obviously, when the budget ends, we don't know exactly what collections are going to be, but it has to be transferred by July 15th. And since we no longer have ease on any appropriations, what we have done is we basically can flex appropriation authority, no cash, from some of our fringe benefit lines so that we can make that transfer. This is then giving that appropriation authority back to those fringe benefit lines so that they're whole and can make their fringe payments throughout the year. So the first one here is our OAS DHI payments that we have to make. On page 67, we use some of the appropriation authority from Mosier's, the pension system, but then again, this is giving it back. And then on page 70 is the same thing from MCHCP. Again, this is sort of a no harm, no foul kind of deal. We use it there in July, and then we get it back to them here before the end of the year, and everything is taken care of that way. Page 73 is an increase for Missouri Consolidated Health Care. This is not actually, we're not actually looking at increased spending here on our health insurance, but we always have to make an estimate of how spending is going to come out of which fund, and it looks like we were a little short in general revenue, so we're going to need some additional funding authority out of general revenue for this. Page 75 is fuel increases for the Department of Ag, their Animal Health Division. Again, we've seen fuel price increases, and this is just to make sure we have enough to get through the end of the year. Page 77, fuel increases for the Ag Division of Weights, Measures, and Consumer Protection. And on page 80, you will see fuel increase for the Highway Patrol. Page 83 is, this is a electronic content management scanning for alcohol, tobacco control. They just need a little bit more funding to get this done. This is to get their records scanned electronically so it's easier for them to access it, provide better customer service to our citizens. Page 85, this is the boiler pressure vessel safety fund balance. That fund, the fees have not been raised in quite a while, and in fact their revenues are actually declining over the last couple of years. So to make sure that we can make payroll for the people paid out of that fund. We're putting a little bit of general revenue in there to make sure that we can meet our obligations there. Page 88 is SEMA operating budget increase. This is for additional, excuse me, okay, so this is for additional rent for one of the warehouses that is housing a lot of our, you know, the DMAT team that responds to medical emergencies, and that's using their, holding their equipment, ventilators, some of those kind of things, and the cost of that warehouse has gone up, and so that's the item there. On page 91 is fuel and utilities increase at the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections is outside of OA's FMDC because they're such a large entity on this. They do their own there, and so this is just like the one we saw earlier for the rest of our state buildings. Page 93 is the offender health care increase. As you remember, we had to negotiate a new health care contract that started, I think it was October of calendar year 22. And so this is just the increase based on that. And also we have more offenders than we thought when we made this original estimate. The next one is the cost in criminal cases reimbursements, basically known as county reimbursements. This is where we reimburse our county jails for inmates that are being held in county jails until they're moved to a state correctional facility. We hadn't seen an increase in this for several years, but based on the best numbers we have right now, we think that's going up a little bit, about $7 million increase. But with this increase, we will not have any arrears. As you remember, 4 or 5 years ago, we were always behind in paying our counties. We have now caught up with that, and this will keep us from going into arrears if we get this supplemental. Page 97 is overtime for our Department of Mental Health. This is about $13 million. As I tell you every year, this specific overtime is in the supplemental because of a bill that was passed back in like 2005, and the General Assembly just wanted to see this overtime specifically in the supplemental, so it's just always been in here versus getting put into their core like almost all the other overtimes are. So it's just sort of an anomaly here, but it's what we have to do. Page 99 is DMH federal funds. This is a provider relief fund. So basically, there was an appropriation out of the DMH Federal CARES Act funds. These actually now are coming from the feds through the federal ARPA fund, so we just need appropriation authority in the right place. We have it in the CARES fund, federal fund, but we need it out of this ARPA federal fund because that's where the feds are sending us the money right now. Page 101 is for DMH, the federal funds from the Bipartisan Safer Community Act grant funding. This provides additional mental health block grant funding for fiscal year 23. This is an addition. This is an existing grant that we've gotten for years. They've just increased it a little bit by about, $544,000. And this goes for crisis response, mental health emergency preparedness. Some of it goes for the expansion of the 988 suicide crisis line, those kind of things. Also in DMH, we have ARPA, Mental Health Block Grant Authority. What has happened here is we actually need a little bit more authority in FY22 than we thought. These projects actually got going and got spending quicker than we thought, and so we thought we would need more of this authority in FY24, but we've actually been getting these going quicker than expected, so we need some more authority in FY23. Page 106 is 988 Block Grant Authority. We were awarded $1 million grant with a 2-year award period. So this is the first half of that of $500,000 for FY23. You'll see the additional $500,000 requested in the FY24 budget. DMH, this is a Children's Division residential rate increase. I'm sorry, page 108. So what happened here is there's basically these children's providers provide services through DSS or DMH. The DSS providers last year were given a 15.5% increase. The DMH providers were only given a 6.7% increase. They provide the exact same services at the exact same places. So this is to just make sure that the providers that are providing the same service through DMH are given the same rate as the ones that are providing it through DSS. It was just an oversight, I think, when it was put in the budget last year. This is DMH. This is contracted staff. As you know, nurses and other of our highly skilled healthcare professionals have been difficult to do. Just like hospitals, we've had to do contracted staff. We are starting to move away from this as much as possible, but this is the amount we think we're going to have to pay for fiscal year 23. Page 113. This is increased CHIP authority. Basically, we've just had a little bit more spending on the CHIP kids, and we need a little bit more authority here to finish out the year. Page 115. So these are moving expenses. I think this is something that we have talked about, you guys have heard in the regular budget and the CI budget. But what we're doing is we're moving some of our administrative staff out of our regional offices in Higginsville, Sykeston, and Poplar Bluff. We will then be able to repurpose those facilities so that we can get additional bed space to help get people out of jails or hospitals or places they shouldn't be into the appropriate setting. This is the moving expense to move those administrative folks out so that we can then convert this to bed space. Page 117. Now we move into the Department of Health. This is the Division of Cannabis Regulation. Due to the constitutional amendment passing, the department needs to basically stand up their regulation division. This is to do that here in the supplemental budget, and you'll see that continuing in the FY24 budget.
Senator May.
So is this funding coming from the proceeds from the marijuana?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And
Yeah.
where do we see the proceeds from the marijuana at in the budget?
Those would be in the Department of Health. Right, for the supplemental budget, which is what this is, we're just standing up the administrative piece. In the FY24 budget, we do have some transfers from those proceeds to the various places that the Constitution requires. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's veterans and...
So
I'm
can
drawing
we
a
have
blank,
that conversation offline?
Sure, but
Thank
we did put some money, transfers into those areas in the FY24 budget.
Thank you.
All right. This is health. This is our Health Access Incentive Fund. There was a payment from FY22 that was not processed until FY23. That's eating up our FY23 appropriation authority. To have enough to be able to get to the end of the year, we need more appropriation authority for this fund. Page 122 is federal funds for state loan repayment program. So we are increasing these awards, and this will be used to expand our Missouri State Loan Repayment Program. These are loan repayments for medical, psychiatric, and dental health professionals in exchange for those working in areas with provider shortages in those fields. So we will be doing a little bit more loan repayment based on some additional federal funds. Page 124, this is some additional federal funds for our adult protective services. Again, due to some contracting delays, some of the FY22 payments were moved to FY23, and we need some additional appropriation authority. Page 126 this is additional funds for long-term care backlog surveys. So this was a grant from the feds, but it had to be obligated by, so this is a grant we got after the budget came through, but they said that the funds had to be obligated actually by September and then spent by December 22. So obviously we were able to get appropriation authority into the budget for that. So we've used other federal funds in this area to do those things, and this is just replacing that appropriation authority for those federal funds because of the timing of having to spend that federal grant so quickly. Page 128, this is civil monetary penalties. These are penalties on nursing homes, and then those funds are then used to do quality care improvements and projects at long-term care facilities for the residents. We have some additional funds in here, and so we need appropriation authority to be able to spend those on those kind of improvement projects. Page 131, this is the DSS child welfare. The number of children moving to permanent homes through either adoption or guardianship has increased, so we need more appropriation authority again. This is one of the places I actually am pretty happy to come ask you for more money because it means we're getting kids into better situations. Page 134, this is just a small little item here for Medicaid, about $1.3 billion, 225 million GR. Based on our most recent projections of what Medicaid will cost us. Page 139, this is Missouri Medicaid access to physician services. This is basically an IGT, which is an intergovernmental transfer, and what we do is we take funds from both the University of Missouri Health System and the University Health Physicians in Kansas City. We take that money, we match it to the feds, and then the federal match we get back and give it all to them. So it's basically us just taking their money and being able to get federal match for them and getting it back to them. So it's a way to maximize revenues for those hospitals. Page 141 is in the judiciary. This is adult use marijuana expungement related expenses. This is $2.4 million for the judiciary to get started on the expungement that was detailed in that constitutional amendment. I will say they're mostly using overtime. They're not hiring additional FTE to get this done. So this should be sort of one-time cost once we get through the backlog. This will go away. They're not hiring permanent employees to do this. Page 143. Again, as I told you, our new statewide accounting system that we're implementing, we've started actually working on that, and with that we need space both for the contractors and our state staff. We have found it is much more efficient for them to be housed together so that they can work efficiently on this project, and so this is some additional lease cost here in Jefferson City for those folks.
Senator Hoskins.
Do we currently have vacant state government buildings that they could be housed in?
We did not here in Jefferson City. We looked, and leased is always our last option, and so this is some space that we had leased for other purposes previously, and we were able to move some people out of this lease space into state-owned space to create enough for the number of people we needed. So, but we did look to see if we could put them all into state-owned space, but we don't. If you remember, we had an office building here in Jeff City burned down, which has sort of hurt us on some of our space issues too. So we do always look to see if we can get them in state-owned space before lease, but in this instance, we had to use leased.
How many FTE are we talking about? I know that these aren't new FTE.
Well, these aren't new FTE.
Right.
It's about 30 to 40 people. Now, it's a mix of state folks that, have a different job, but we're moving them temporarily to help us develop our new accounting and budgeting system. And then the contracted staff from the vendors and others that are helping us implement the software. So it's a combination of state staff and contracted employees with our vendor, but these are not new employees.
Great. Thank you.
Page 145 is the Kansas City Regional Office. There was we have 47 FTE located in Lee's Summit. The place where we had them, the space we had them, is telling us that we're no longer able to have them in there. And so we are putting them in a new lease space in Kansas City, but it has a higher cost. We are looking for other options, but at this point, we're going to put them in this space till we can find other options. But this is what our current plan is, and then we're looking for better options as we move forward. And then on 147, this is additional costs for the utilities. The way this works is in House Bill 5 earlier, you saw where we get the payments from our departments because we allocate it out, and then this is where we pay it out in House Bill 13. So it's sort of a two-step process there. And that is it.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions from the committee? It does not appear so. Dan, appreciate you running through House Bill 15. I guess just for the benefit of the committee, that actually is the summation of our public testimony on the House bills, the supplemental bills, all the departments' budget requests, and tentatively, I believe the House is planning on taking action on the floor next week, assuming they get through markup this week, which means we would end up getting the bills probably the beginning of the following week, and we'll start working on markup thereafter, which, most everyone on the committee's been either working with our staff or in and out of my office in the last several weeks and months to, itemize some things out, and I imagine that'll just continue till we finish up. Okay, we're adjourned.
Yeah.
It's always like